What's going on, guys? So, today's podcast episode is going to be both without glasses and without the mic because the glare is reflecting so powerfully on all of my glasses that I feel like it is distracting. Well, it's distracting me, so I'm concerned that it'll distract you guys. We'll slip it on at some point during the episode, but what we're going to talk about today is Erin Elizabeth Stratman. Who is that? Well, that is the Caucasian NICU nurse. NICU is short for Neonatal Intensive Care Unit. Neonatals are premature or sick babies, sicker than what can be managed in a well baby nursery. Erin Elizabeth Stratman was causing an abundance of harm to NICU nurses, specifically African American NICU babies, specifically African American babies. So the report was highlighting the fact that these babies' bones were being broken, that they were finding fractures. And so that's what ultimately ended up being the story. The story was, or not the story, but the report. The report was that this NICU nurse was breaking the bones of African American babies. However, looking at the full article from the Washington Post, it looked like she was causing multiple different forms of harm to the babies prior to even breaking their bones. There were attempts to break their bones. And what I would like to interject here is just a tad bit of information. Newborn baby bones or babies' bones are flexible. It's very difficult to break a newborn baby's bones. They are in a state that makes it easy for them to adapt and grow. And because of that, it's a defense mechanism. I hope that makes sense. It's meant to protect the babies as they grow and as they develop. So there was a considerable amount of effort that went into causing harm to these babies. And I had mentioned on all of my other social media platforms that I was going to come on here on my podcast and I was going to go into additional detail about this particular case because I know that my platform, my storytelling platforms, all of them are primarily focused on telling stories and experiences as they pertain to my healthcare experience. I am a nurse and I'm actively pursuing my career in psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. So my exposure is constant. It's constant with my career, it's constant with my education, and that provides ample opportunity for me to present a situation protecting patients, protecting healthcare facilities, protecting coworkers as I tell these stories. But there is always a pretty solid surprise factor within these stories. And as much as I am able to, or I understand the importance of protecting the patient's identities and the healthcare workers' identity and the healthcare facilities, I do my best to maintain the component of each story that makes it so like, oh my God, what? That's crazy. And it's because the purpose is to share that healthcare is an interesting place. Crazy things do happen. It's not always reported. I remembered a while ago, Will Smith had said, racism isn't getting worse, it's just getting recorded. So the more and more we have access to certain platforms and certain electronic devices and advancements, the more opportunity we have to point out and record situations that weren't always being discussed. So yes, there is a humorous degree to the stories that I tell, but some of them, they're weighted, they're heavier. And the purpose is to highlight, again, the fact that interesting, crazy, and sometimes devastating things do take place in healthcare. You can't unsee it. You can't make it up. And it both makes you stronger, and it also, I don't know, it kind of makes you sad. If you're not level-headed, if you don't have a support system, if you don't have a solid group of people that are there to hold you accountable, or to be there for you in moments where you didn't realize you wouldn't be able to handle a certain situation, you are going to crumble. Because had I been in that hospital with this nurse, finding out that she was a large part of harm to innocent, newborn, already immunocompromised babies, I'm not sure that my response would have been commendable or admirable, or, one to look up to. This was an abominable action, and it was happening on a consistent basis. What they said in the article was that they only started doing additional investigation once they started seeing that these babies' bones were broken. So they stopped admissions to the NICU. They knew that the issue was the NICU. You don't just admit a baby into the NICU specifically for them to get worse. That doesn't make any sense. So there has to be a human being in that department causing additional harm to, again, these already immunocompromised babies. That is a tough pill to swallow. That is rough. I remembered reading through some of my comments, and I remembered a couple of people saying, I'm a nurse, I work in healthcare. And this was under one of my other videos that I posted. And it was about this other nurse who, long story short, didn't want to address a low blood glucose, because that same patient whose blood glucose was detrimentally low was also very loud, very disturbing, very disrespectful. They were the problem child of the unit. And so when I said, we have to fix this blood glucose, and their response was, things are quiet. Like, why would you do that? One or two of the comments that I noticed were, I don't believe that. There's no way that could have happened. There isn't a single nurse that I know that would have ever done something like that, or something along those lines. Sometimes I feel like responding to those comments are so outrageously pointless, because I am in healthcare, and I'm seeing the abominable things take place. I am seeing some of those things be brushed under the rug. I am seeing them not be addressed whenever I, or another nurse brings it to an administrator's attention. And now here we are addressing a much bigger issue. There is a nurse who went to school, who devoted her time and her energy and her effort into becoming a nurse to care for the sick, specializing in this department, because there are a few departments in the hospital that you have to get additional certifications for to work. NICU is one of them. Labor and delivery is another one of them. The OR is another one of them. There are certain parts of the hospital that you can't just apply to work and not expect additional training. So she did additional work. There was additional effort that went into this, only to take this degree, to take this training, to deliberately cause harm. Yes, healthcare can be an unbelievable place. Strange things do take place. And it's sad. It's depressing. So the people that do put the additional effort into caring for those that are less fortunate, those that are trying their best to try to keep their heads above water, and those that are having a hard time accepting that they're even sick and they're projecting, those are the people we are trying. We're trying to be above those who have lost all respect for the process. Weird things are happening. And there's also the degree of guilt like feeling guilty for saying something that you noticed another nurse do that was putting a patient in grave danger. Now, with me saying that, I do feel like there is a middle ground. There are shortcuts that nurses have developed for the sake of surviving in healthcare. Those shortcuts cannot be compared to quite evidently detrimental and harming situations. Those situations cannot be compared. And I already know that there are some nurses that will bring a smaller situation to higher ups' attention just for the sake of saying, look at me, I am fighting, I am advocating. There's a difference. And if you are an adult, if you are a logical adult and you know how to use your frontal lobe, you know the difference. You know that there are nurses in general do their best to get through the day, and they have to develop shortcuts. Those shortcuts are not the same as ignoring a blood glucose that's like 33. It's not the same as causing harm to sicker newborn babies just because they are African American. So there's no comparison. It's an unfortunate situation. It is a devastating situation, and I can only imagine how these babies' parents are feeling. All I can truly say to this is that if you're going to decide to be a nurse, understand that you are going to see everything from absolutely beautiful and rewarding moments that touch your soul and that will stay with you forever to the complete opposite. And those will also stay with you forever. I just encourage a support system. I encourage that you speak up when you see something that you know is not going to benefit the patient. In fact, it will cause direct harm. And I also encourage new nurses to ask questions, because harm can be caused to patients unintentionally because of the fear of bringing a concern to, a seasoned nurse's attention. Don't pay that any mind. And when I say don't pay that any mind, I'm saying don't stop to think about what other nurses are going to think of you because you don't know something. You're not supposed to know everything out of nursing school. All of these circumstances can lead to harm to the patient. You got to think about it. I remembered when I started doing Botox, and one of my good friends who has an aesthetic company, a med spa, wanted me to come in and immediately start doing Botox on her clients. I was like, oh no, I understand that I have the certification, but I need more practice. Like even though this is a much smaller, much lesser scale, I'm still touching somebody's face. I'm still doing something to someone that can change things for them and harm them. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's incredibly important to just ask and put yourself in a position to learn and put yourself in a position to gain more knowledge. And if that means that you're going to go up to your charge nurse or a seasoned nurse and ask the same question the 7th time, so be it. At least you know now for sure that the patient is going to be fine. In an attempt to not end on such a sour note, I do want to express gratitude for those of you who did show up to my more recent event, which was my book signing. It was a beautiful turnout. It was very positive. Yes, my hand did cramp from signing an abundance of books, but I loved it. That was a good problem to have. So again, I'm leaving this video encouraging new nurses to ask questions, to learn, and to report things that you know would cause harm. And I'm also encouraging everybody to click the link below, go to my website, subscribe, purchase any of my literary masterpieces, and support your girl in any way that you can. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the support.